Kabwe, the capital of Central Province in Zambia, formerly named Broken Hill. It came to be when lead and zinc deposits were discovered here in 1902 in what was then called Northern Rhodesia. The name Broken Hill was named after an Australian lead mining town. Kabwe's central location made it a natural meeting and resting place for Zambia's pre-independence operations. But before we get into the sites that are still standing today in Kabwe and are strongly linked to Zambia's independence and that make this town pivotal in Zambia's attaining independence, let's spend a bit of time talking about the Broken Hill mine. In 1921, 90 feet beneath the surface of the Broken Hill mine, the first historically significant human fossil, a skull, was recovered from cave deposits during metal ore mining. It came to be called Broken Hill Man. While this skull is kept in the Natural History Museum in London, there is a replica at the Kabwe City's Municipal Council grounds. This is one of the many rich history findings declared heritage sites in Kabwe.
You are aware that the skull was discovered here in Kabwe. And later on, we have information that the skull is now in UK or in Britain. But then we are saying we cannot do without a skull. Probably let's find even a replica. And I'm happy to mention that the Ministry of Tourism decided to give us that authority to come up with a replica. This time you are talking about the history of Zambia, talking about the independence of Zambia. It will be incomplete if you don't talk about Kabwe. You agree with me that there is a lot in the offing when you are talking about the independence and the history about the nation of this republic, Zambia. You agree with me that way back, all the issues to do with freedom fighting, most of it was strategized from Kabwe. And each time you are having a president, they will first come in Kabwe, settle in Kabwe, have their meetings in Kabwe, particularly the Rock of Authority, and then they will have their conventions and so on and so forth. Later on, a president is installed. Why? Because they had to pass through Kabwe. Looking at sustainability, for sure, we need to make sure that everything that goes along with freedom and independence is well cherished here in Kabwe, and it will be we'll be failing in our duties also as civic leaders if, of course, we don't appreciate our forefathers, we don't appreciate the senior citizens, we don't appreciate, those who have gone ahead of us, but who helped to liberate this country from the colonial masters.
Kabwe also hosts significant locations where slaves are said to have found rest during pre-independence times and specifically during the World War. King George College, for instance, was a hiding place for King George V. King George V was the grandfather to Queen Elizabeth, the Queen of England. This house that you see was what King George V called his home. As much as it was his home, he turned it into that because it was his hiding place during the World War I. After that, more buildings started surrounding it, students of agriculture and teaching started coming here, and these buildings became a college. It then was called King George VI College. It is still being called King George VI College. This today is a symbol, standing strong, showing that prior to independence, after independence, Zambia and Britain have a relationship.
to understand that he lived here, if you are just entering the main gate, to your left, you would see a mean grave there. That mean grave, that's where some of his property were buried, to symbolize that King George lived here. And now the people of Northern Rhodesia at that time decided to establish this in collaboration with the British themselves, in memory of the king himself who lived here. That's how this college was born. And also, in details, you'd find that the college was not operating the way we are operating today. This camp was given by the people of Northern Rhodesia as a memorial to His Majesty King the 60th, and was opened by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth herself.
This is Kalonga Secondary School. It is one of the first representations of social acceptance of black Zambians by the then white colonialists. This school accommodated children of black miners working at Broken Hill Mine.
1961, that's when the school was established, with the first head teacher being a white man, Mr. Mills. So, like you have observed, there's an interaction between the whites and the Africans. Because after Mr. Mills, who was head teacher 1961 up to 65, the one who came after was a black man, Mr. Mfana. So we see the loosening of racial barriers between the whites and the Africans, where you have a head teacher who is a white, and then just after independence, we have a black. And the third person again was a white man. So Kalonga indeed has got a part to play in the struggle for independence. You see a sense of pride that, you know, this is a school which has passed through hands of the whites and also the Africans. And you find our children are quite proud because they believe that actually they also contributed in a way to the liberation struggle of independence by insisting that they could have white head teachers, but the pupils were Africans. So as a school, we have that sense of pride. We are connected to the liberation struggle of Zambia because our school, Kalonga Secondary School, contributed a white, then an African also came through, meaning that we are part and parcel of the struggle for independence. We wanted to work together to ensure that we are called one people.
Noel Mabeti is a history teacher at Kalonga Secondary School. He takes us through some of the iconic establishments in Kabwe.
When we talk about Zambia Railways, in the first place, brief history says the Zambia Railways, the rail line reached Broken Hill, which is now Kabwe, in 1906. Later on, in the operations of Zambia Railways, there were issues of trade unions. There was a union led by Mr. Roy Welensky, and then later on another one led by Mr. Dickson Konkola. The trade union representing Zambia Railways workers for the blacks, which was led by Mr. Dickson Konkola, was opposed actually to the formation of the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. And actually, Mr. Welensky's political career started from here as a trade unionist and later on became the prime minister for the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. So that opposition started with the union representing blacks led by Mr. Konkola. And that opposition went on. So you can see that the Federation actually just lasted for 10 years, from 1953 to 1963, and it collapsed. So the contributing factor was the opposition that was coming from the labor movement led by Mr. Konkola. So you can see Zambian politics, the labor movement contributing to Zambian politics, and in particular the struggle for independence. It started from there, and eventually that the federation collapsed, and later on Zambia gained independence. So there is a contribution coming from the labor movement, which was as a result of this company, which was the Rhodesia Rail Line, now Zambia Railways Limited. We're talking about Broken Hill Mine, even Zambia Railways. When we talk about also, they also brought in the issue of community social responsibility by providing recreation facilities, and that is what led to the establishment of the railway stadium, which is now Godfrey Chitalu, named after one of Zambia's greatest footballers. History says he scored 107 goals in one season, something like that. The Mulungushi Local Authority has a very important place in the history of Zambian politics, especially the struggle for independence. I'll give an example. In 1958, the Zambia African National Congress held its first convention at the Mulungushi Local Authority. Then in 1960, after Dr. Kaunda and others broke away from ZANC to form UNIP, they also held their first national conference from there, and they picked on the Mulungushi Local Authority because of its central location. People from all parts of the country were able to access the place, plenty of water to sustain those who attended the conference, and most importantly, that place could not easily be accessed by the Rhodesian authorities. It is from here that the nationalists resolved to use any means possible to ensure that they gained independence. It is from here that such violent campaigns leading to the independence, such as the Chachacha campaign, started from. So from there, afterwards, when you look at even after independence, the Mulungushi Local Authority continued to hold that significant position in hosting important meetings. Political parties have been having their annual conventions from there, starting from the United Nations Independence Party, the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, the Patriotic Front, and also even the labor movement also have been having their conventions from there. So when you look at all this, it's a place that is associated with the authority. That is why you see political parties, the labor movement, especially when they are having conventions, they are choosing their leaders, usually they choose to go to the Mulungushi Local Authority. So you can't talk about Zambian independence without talking about the Mulungushi Local Authority. Then today, when you go to the same place, the Mulungushi University now is using the same place for, it's now the graduation square for Mulungushi University.
Wacha Township finds itself on the list that houses homes to many Zambians that were involved in Zambia's independence struggle.
Mulungushi emuntu ifintu fyonse fyapoka independence fyayambile Mulungushi. Ukwamba fyentiro kwamba mu Zambia African National Congress twaisa panga na ANIP African National Independence pakati twaisa panga yaba na United National Independence Party fyonse fyadi Mulungushi. Ero kabiri na Mulungushi Local Authority ni Mulungushi yadi fyonse. I was a youth constituent secretary in Kabwe during the struggle. I started as a branch secretary in Chimanimani in 1959 up to 1960. Then I was promoted to become a youth constituent secretary here in Kabwe. I went to prison. I was in prison for 5 times. When I was first in Kasama, I was detained in Kasama for 1 month. That time I was a secretary, branch secretary for Chitamba Bavemba in Kasama. That was in 1958 in African National Congress. I started politics when I was very young.
Nalenda panshine kuya mkuchita kampeni kuti bakaunda bapite pachipuna. Twali umfwa sana ichirumba pantu inena alire na kutanzania kuya iminina Tanzania kuya iminina chino chalo cha Zambia. Ku Tanzania kwali mwalimu Nyerere na abantu nevyo bajulire mukupoko buntungo. Ero kuno kumwesu kuno ku Zambia. Wachulire ni mumo na mayo uafwere itebera. Julia chikamonika. Bantu independence ipito bushiku. Taipita akasuba. Bushiku. Akasuba ni celebration ya independence. Na ile mkuchula ini. Ukwenda kuya mukulwisha. Ichalo chino kufaya matoroshi ya kutitromeo bwali aefwala. Kulo tuleya kuchalo tuyase bana. Mukukankoroso. Tuwali nao ku Tanzania. Taumfuika neshiwi. Takwaba. Bambia abo tuwali nabo abengi balifwa. Badani for dichiru aba baba demba fye sukulu ilili hapa. Ati Danford Chewe was a chairman of this constituency. Inena alikuyusi constituency kurulinga iyonse yabamu bamushanga from prison mpaka kuya Lusaka Road. Nalichula ne mwana kashi.
E1376 in Wacha Township housed Grey Zulu freedom fighter and politician.
This house is linked to Zambia's history of the struggle for independence. This is where Mr. Grey Zulu used to live during the struggle for independence. He served as the Secretary General for UNIP, and later on he served in the cabinet and also served in the government. This is evidence that this town contributed to the struggle for independence for Zambia, because we can see where one of those prominent freedom fighters lived.
The Mukuyu tree right in the center of Kabwe's CDB is an amazing tree, and it is huge. It is also called the slave tree, but the slave, being called the slave tree gives us another story of how the slaves used to rest here before they proceed to where they were going. But also, it's predominantly known for rest, providing shade, because also political prisoners during the independence era, pre and a little bit slightly just near independence, a lot of these political prisoners who are leaving prison, getting back to their normal life, would come here, rest and wait to be dispatched with various means of transport, either to the Copper Belt or to Lusaka or to wherever they were coming from.
Over the years, it has changed the purposes it has served. At some point during the First and Second World War, it was used as a recruitment center for soldiers who served in the First World War and the Second World War under the British. Maybe it could be here where some soldiers were recruited who actually guarded the British king at now the King George VI College, where he is believed to have come to hide during the war. Then the same tree also, when we go back again a bit, after the opening of the mines, especially farmers who came to sell their produce together with their animals, they would rest under the tree. Then during the time for the struggle for independence, again, during the struggle for independence, again, it served an important purpose such that the gatherings would take place under the same tree. So it's a tree that when you talk about the struggle for independence, you cannot talk about Kabwe Town contributing to the independence of Zambia without talking about the slave tree. It is for this reason that even after independence, it continued to serve as a gathering place during Independence Day celebrations, Labor Day celebrations, Christmas, and similar celebrations. As you can see, up to this day, the Mkuyu tree still serves the purpose by providing shelter to especially farmers and the street vendors. You can see people are selling merchandise under the same tree to now. Because of the importance of the Mkuyu tree in the history of Zambia, it has been declared as a national monument. Right behind the tree, that is where you find the regional offices for UNIP. And also because of its significance in the history of Zambia, the Bank of Zambia in 2002 adopted it and depicted it on the then highest banknote, the 50,000 kwacha. So today when you see a 50 kwacha, there is a big tree there. This is the tree that actually appears there.
When leaving Lusaka for Kabwe Central Province, I knew it has history related to Zambia's independence, but the depth of it is incredible. As night falls in Kabwe, one can't help but think how most people only see this city as a transit point, when the detail of the town holds such great history and depth of Zambia's independence story.